Hello, DCPS 11th graders, and welcome to week 4 and 5 of distance learning. My name is Anthony Hiller, and I work at DCPS Central Office on the Social Studies team. I'll be with you for the next 5 minutes to provide you with an overview of the 11th grade weeks 4 through 5 distance learning plan. For weeks 4 and 5 of the 11th grade plan, we are going to be learning about World War II and the Cold War in order to answer the compelling question, how does war change a nation? The cover of your distance learning plan should look like this. So let's begin to break down that compelling question. How does war change a nation? Think about the words war and change. As you may already know from previous studies of the World War II era, the changes that occurred during wars go well beyond the both horrific and honorable scenes that emerge from battlefields. As you'll learn through this distance learning plan, wars change how we see one another. Wars change us when we think about what we're willing to actually sacrifice in order to persevere. Wars push us to change our alliances based on what we need most in that moment, even if victory in that one war then means opening up the door to new and different kinds of war later. In order to break down the compelling question, how does war change a nation, we will use 3 supporting questions. They will serve as the basis by which you will complete your studies over the next 2 weeks. The first supporting question, during a war, what should be the U.S. strategy for the home front? The second supporting question, after World War II, how was communism perceived by Americans? And a third supporting question, during the Cold War, how did the Soviet Union and the U.S. compete? Let's begin by breaking down these supporting questions, and then we'll talk a little bit about the performance tasks you'll complete at the end of the 2-week experience. The first supporting question is, during a war, what should be the U.S. strategy for the home front? For these days, you'll be looking at a timeline of World War II, varying forms of propaganda from the World War II era, and doing a deeper dive into some of the programs and initiatives that the U.S. used as a strategy for the home front. You'll also make connections between those strategies and those policies and how we're still using some of those policies today as we attack the COVID-19 crisis. The second supporting question, after World War II, how was communism perceived by Americans? For this portion of the distance learning plan, you will do an overview learning lesson on the word communism and begin to understand how communism was being used during the years after World War II. Then you'll break down how the US and the Soviet Union began to perceive one another's intentions by doing a close read of a letter from Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev to US President John F. Kennedy from the early 1960s. Finally, you'll work on a third supporting question. During the Cold War, how did the Soviet Union and the US compete? Here, we'll do a deep dive into the containment policy used by US to guide foreign policy and begin to break down some of the competitions that the US and Soviet Union engaged in between the end of World War II and the early 1960s. After completing these 3 supporting questions and all of the sources and tasks that go along with them, you'll be ready for the performance task. Over 2 days, you will work on writing an argumentative essay that answers the question, how does war change a nation? Remember, that's our compelling question for this entire distance learning packet. You'll be doing that by evaluating how the US was changed by both the real and perceived threats to its security during and after World War II. It's going to be very important for you to bring the new knowledge that you gained from the sources and tasks you worked on over the past 2 weeks. Thanks for watching this video. I know I'm speaking for your teachers when I say we are looking forward to the amazing work you're going to complete over weeks 4 and 5.